welcome to another DragonLance Saga Readings episode. My name is Adam, and today I'm reading the second preview of Dragons of Deceit. This is the first novel in the trilogy of the Destinies trilogy that's coming out in classic Dragonlance, written by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. Now, this particular excerpt was released to IGN, which they say is an exclusive. I guess they didn't realize that Polygon already released another one. So, I don't know how exclusive first look it could be when it's the exclusive second look. Anyway, JB, cheers to yourself, Manslange. Chris, thanks for joining live. Did I just see you? Frylock, how you doing? I like the High Lord head. I like seeing that. Got a couple High Lords in the chat. All right, so what I'm planning on doing is dramatically reading through this excerpt, and we're going to talk about it because there's some stuff to talk about. It is Friday. I just finished a review of Tales Volume 3, Love and War. I'm about to enjoy some more vino. Palm Tree, what's good is right, I agree. Lots of dwarves in this one. That's what this one is. The last one was like clearly much earlier in the story than this one is, even though it's saying, well, here's a couple things I think are interesting to note. IGN says, the following excerpt is set early in the book and has been lightly modified from what will appear in the final version. So that tells me they don't want to give away what the actual purpose is. I have a feeling they heard our collective size at the last preview, and they're like, all right, we need to hook in these readers a little bit more than the last one did. So let's give them a little something, something. I suspect oh my gosh, I can't remember what the literary reference is. The item that they're going to be talking about in this is not actually what they're talking about. So we're going to get into it, but let's get into this. Let's do it. Exclusive preview 2. Apparently, I don't know how to count. 2. Oy vey. It's gonna be a day. Solid Crumbie, how you doing? Thanks for joining live. Dungeon Questin, how you doing? All right. Wolfstone studied the tall. He knew enough about humans to realize they would find her attractive, with her black hair and large, dark eyes and burnished brown skin. She wore fine clothes and a fur cloak of Salamnic make. But as she stepped into a pool of light, he saw that her luxurious cloak was worn and the hem of her tunic was frayed, as were the cuffs on her sleeve. Her boots were scuffed and slightly run down at the heel. She wore no jewelry except a single ring on her little finger, and it was not a wedding ring, for Salamnics wore those on their heart fingers. Having observed her, Wolfstone left the main part of the great hall by a staircase that led down several levels to the dungeons. He could hear the sound of drunken singing coming from the cells. Apparently, one prisoner had imbibed too heavily in dwarf spirits. He headed for the King's Hall, the fortification that surrounded this level. Wolfstone took a lantern from an iron sconce and walked along the hall until he came to the door of a storage room. Drawing out a key he wore on a chain on his belt, Wolfstone unlocked the door and entered the room. He then locked the door behind him and hung the lantern from a hook on the wall. The room contained nothing but 2 chairs. Wolfstone sat down in one of the chairs, crossed his legs at the ankles, clasped his hands over his midriff, and settled in to wait. He did not wait long before he heard a key rattle in the lock. The door opened, and Hornfell entered. The king locked the door behind him again so their meeting would be private. He and Wolfstone were the only 2 people in the world who had keys to this room. Wolfstone rose, took off his hat, and bowed. Hornfell smiled at him and advanced to heartily embrace him. "I am glad you were able to come so swiftly," said Hornfell. "I happened to be in Highbarden on a job when I got your message," said Wolfstone. Hornfell nodded and lowered himself into the chair. He looked tired and haggard, as though he had not slept, and his expression was unusually dark and stern. He waved Wolfstone to seat.
I have received troubling information that I need you to investigate. You saw the human woman in company with the chief cleric?
I did, said Wolfstone. Solamnic, noble family, not married. She once had money, but lost it and is now living in reduced circumstances. She is far from home, and a reason for traveling all this distance must be important enough and troubling enough for you to invite her to the live tree. Hornfell regarded him in admiration.
You are a marvel, Wolfstone. You are right on all counts. You remember the Solamnic wizard that Thewa caught spying on them? The one they tortured? The one you hold back to Palanthas?
I remember. He kept babbling about a grey gem, said Wolfstone.
This Solamnic woman has come here looking for that same grey gem, claiming it is in the kingdom of the Thewa.
Obviously the wizard sent her, said Wolfstone.
Of course he did,
said Hornfell.
She admitted as much. The woman said the wizard read about it in a book from the library of Palanthas.
Interesting. Wolfstone scratched his cheek. What did this woman want with the grey gem?
She spun some candid tale about needing it to save her father. A pack of lies.
Wolfstone nodded. But you fear she is not lying about the grey gem's location. It is in Thorbarden? Hornfell sighed and scowled.
According to the woman, the wizard told her the grey gem was embedded in a wall in a ruined temple. The grey gem radiates a faint grey light that shines down on the altar.
Hornfell eyed his friend.
You and I saw that light when we were hiding in that ruined temple, my friend.
Riox, save us, Wolfstone muttered. So that's what that was.
You realize what this means,
said Hornfell.
If the grey gem is in the temple of the Dark Queen, and the Thewa realize they have it, they could use it to wage war on us. All of Thorbarden could be in danger.
Our greatest danger is not from the Thewa. It is from the grey gem. Said, chaos is trapped inside, and it has the power to bring down the mountain. All right, well, I messed that up because it continued. It's supposed to be the king. Then what in the name of Riox should I do? Consider this, sire. If the grey gem is hiding among the Thewa, it has probably been hiding there for centuries unseen, undetected. And now, with a space of a few weeks, this wizard reads about it in a book, and you and I stumble across it, and a human female comes seeking it. Chaos has awakened, and the gem wants to be found, though not by the wizard, seemingly. It betrayed him.
Then you find it,
Hornfell said grimly,
and get rid of it.
Wolfstone was silent a moment, not wanting to have refused his king's command, but in this instance he had no choice. Two forces existed at the beginning of time, the High God and Chaos. Riox trapped Chaos in the gem, and now the gem is in our mountain. Forgive me, sire, but I won't touch the accursed thing any more than I would spit at the High God. Wolfstone fixed Hornfell with a grim look. Would you, sire? Hornfell scowled, and Wolfstone feared he had angered him. But the king was reasonable, and he considered the argument.
No, I wouldn't,
he admitted at last.
Not for all the treasure in a dragon's hoard. So what do? We can't leave it there.
We must find a way to get it to himself, said Wolfstone. Riox created the damn thing. He can deal with it. What are your plans for the Tull, sire? Why did you bring her to the live tree?
To keep an eye on her,
Hornfell growled.
I can't have her going around telling everyone she meets that the grey gem is hiding in Thorbarden.
I doubt she'll do that, sire, said Wolfstone. It's in her interest to keep it secret.
She's a tall, isn't she?
said Hornfell.
You can't trust them. What are you thinking?
That I could use her to get the Grey Gem, said Wolfstone. From what you say, it brought her here. We will let her find it and carry it to Riox. There's a risk, though. I could be putting her in danger.
She claims to be the daughter of a Solamnic knight,
Hornfell grunted.
Those fools live for the opportunity to die heroes. Do whatever you must, Wolfstone. Just get rid of the damn thing.
Wolfstone nodded and rose to his feet. Hornfell faced him and rested both hands on his shoulders.
Take care of yourself, my friend. I'd send you off with the old blessing. Riox be with you. But, bless his beard, the god's help is the last thing you need.
And that's the end of it. Okay, here's what we got to deal with. The Grey Gem again! Again! We know this is dealing with the device of time journeying because it's in the synopsis. But the Grey Gem, so here's a couple reasons why I think they're not talking about the Grey Gem. Why the IGN prefaced this with the end is changed and it's different in this story than in the final novel. I don't think they're talking about the Grey Gem right now. I think they're talking about the device of time journeying, though I don't know why either would be in Thorbarden at all. But the Grey Gem right now is on an Isle of Gargath, being held prisoner by, well, basically itself. It's got Gargath's descendant, a wizard, trapped there. It's got all of the natives of the island, all of the women in the keep, in the castle, protecting the Grey Gem. It's doing everything it can not to be found at this point. And it's not till after this story when Palin, Tannen, Sturm, and Reorx in the guise of Dugan Flimflam, I can't remember his name right now, Dugan, who is Reorx, they go to the island to liberate it, right? Now, he does lose it again in a game with the natives of the island, but at no point should the Grey Gem right now be in Thorbarden. Makes zero sense at all. And I know they did their homework. They reached out to other knowledgeable people about Dragonlance in order to write this story. So I cannot imagine why they would change that. Now, in the last stream, I said, if you think you know the history of Dragonlance, wait 10 minutes and it's going to change. This could be the next change. This could be it. The Grey Gem is not on the Isle of Gargath. They reneged that entire tale, or they're using this as the reason for it to be on the island, even though that story clearly said after it left the original Gargath's grasp, he chased after it. So, who knows? Who knows what the reality is of this? But the fact that they're now adding in the device of time journeying, Tasselhoff Burfoot, and the Grey Gem in this story, come on. Come on. This is getting like Star Wars Heir to the Empire level. Like, how many world-killing devices do you need in a story? You know? How many times do we have to go back to that well over and over and over again? So I'm hoping that they don't bring the Grey Gem into this because there's no reason for it to be in this. Like, if they want to keep in the existing canon, she could come to Thorbarden looking for the Grey Gem, not to find it, and then goes off to the island to look for it, has misadventures on the island, and then leaves without it. And that would maintain the existing canon. But this should not be here. Rev Kev, how you doing? Thanks for joining live. You're getting a tad worried that the goal of the reboot of Dragonlance is to redo the timeline. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't think so until this. And now I'm like, oh shit. Maybe. Like, because that's not what Margaret Weis was saying when I interviewed her. That's not what Tracy Hickman said. since he's been discussing it. I mean, the fact is the Wizards of the Coast is doing one thing with Dragonlance, and Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman with this trilogy is doing something completely different, which is why they tacked on the classic nomenclature to the logo. So that they could do their own thing, that would be classic Dragonlance, and then 5th edition Dragonlance could do it its own thing. And never the two shall meet. That's what they're doing. But now that I read this, it really does feel like all of those years ago when Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman were kicked off of Dragonlance after Summer Flame, and they were forced to make Summer Flame into one novel instead of the trilogy that it was supposed to be, that there was bad blood. And when 5th Age came out and Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman saw all of the fan backlash for 5th edition, and Jean Rabe, I think unfairly, got a lot of flack for writing Dragons of a New Age and trying to keep Dragonlance going into the future, because I think she did a fair job with what she was given. I think this may be a way of them coming back and saying, no, this is my toy. You don't get to play with it. In the same way that War of Souls Lord Soth ending was Tracy Hickman's way of taking Lord Soth away from Ravenloft and saying, this is my toy, you don't get to play with it. So I hope it's going to end well, is all I'm saying. Like, I don't, wherever they're going to end it, I don't know why we have to keep going back to the well, like the old well. I don't know. They set up such a beautiful, promising future after War of Souls and Dark Disciples. I think that version of Dragonlance, of Krynn, of the world of Krynn, is the best world yet. Like, personally, I think that's the best we're going to get. We should go from that point on. We should not go back to after Warlance, before the Blue Ladies War, and mess with the Grey Gem again. And then the device of time journeying and Tasselhoff Bertha. Like, how many times is Tasselhoff is he going to have to die in this too? Like, do we have to relive that again? He's died like 3 times, I think. Like, come on. Give me a break. With promotion of the new book coming, any chance to get Tracy Hickman to do an interview? I reached out to Tracy Hickman and he has not responded. So it was also during the time when I was having... I was changing my email address a lot. So I started with DragonLance-Saga.com, but that was so unwieldy and a long email address for the domain name that I changed it to a Proton Mail email. But I did that for security purposes. But that became a pain in the ass to check online only instead of having it downloaded to my devices. So I said, screw that, and I just went with DL Saga. So in all of that is when I reached out to him from multiple emails, including my current email, dlsaga.com. So I have not yet heard back from him at all. So I don't think he's either not interested or he's too busy or what. But I saw that he was on another channel recently talking about it. So I know they're doing interviews. So maybe he just doesn't like me, which is okay. I don't know. Let's see. You're very welcome, Frolic, for reading that. I do enjoy reading them. I had a different voice for Wolfstone. I was going to try to do like a Norse sort of voice for him, but in the moment I lost the rhythm of it, and so I couldn't recapture it, and so I just sort of did this weird hollow sound. I really liked the voice that I did for the King, Hornfell. I just figured this like deep, grunty, sort of Scandinavian tone would do a dwarf justice. So I hope I pulled that off well enough anyway. Let's see. You want Adam to replace the narrator on Audible for your Dragonlance books? Man, if I could do that, I would just stop doing my profession. I would just start a new profession as a voiceover artist. Because that would be awesome. I would love to do that. Thanks, Solid Crumbie. I appreciate that. Let's see. You're not looking forward to more Chaos High God Grey Gem stories. You were hoping for a different plot line, but you'll stay optimistic because Weis and Hickman are the best. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm doing too. Like I'm not looking forward to another time travel device situation. And certainly now that they pulled the Grey Gem out of their pockets, I'm not looking forward to that at all. I just feel like there's so many versions of the Grey Gem. Even the way it's spelled has changed dramatically from Grey Gem to Grey Gem to Grey Stone to Grey Stone depending on who you get it from. There's some modules where the gray gem and its, liberated freedom from Castle Greystone. Is that Gargath's castle? Little He-Man, is that it? Castle Greystone? I have the power. Anyway, the liberation from Gargath. There's a module where it gets caught in Quilinisty. And it's where Kith actually finds it. And it like creates this dimensional pocket underneath Quilinisty. And so the heroes of that module can actually go in and liberate the gray gem in the story, which is weird. Just weird. And you'll actually like in that dimensional pocket, I think it's like a space-time dimensional rift that I think you actually meet Kith, if I remember it correctly. But again, it's been a while since I've like read the module, so it might be a little different. I'm going off memory here. But yeah, that was really weird too. So they've just done so much with the gray gem. I kind of feel like it's just time to hang it up, I mean, it's hung up now that Chaos is out in the current timeline and all that's done, but I don't know, man. I don't know. It's weird. All right. Well, that's all I had. I wanted to read it because it's clearly stuff to talk about with Dragonlance, and we don't get that very often. I kept this as a reading episode rather than a news episode because we already know the novel's coming out. That's the news. These previews, I feel like, are not the news. It's, yeah, Palm Tree, heroes of the universe. All right, you know what? Before I stop this feed, what's your favorite, like, what are some great bad guys, right? Because if I'm thinking of like my youth and the great bad guys, it's Lord Soth, Darth Vader. But I don't think anyone ever says Mum-Ra. Mum-Ra was terrifying. He wasn't like Skeletor who was like, I'm going to get you. He was like on par with Gargamel and the Smurfs, just sort of comical and ridiculous and just stupid. Mum-Ra was a nightmare. It was like the mummy injected with like alien DNA. He was just like this horrible, magical, terrifying monstrosity of an evil, like an Emperor Palpatine wrapped in bandages. It was, no one ever talks about Mum-Ra. Daedalus, great choice. I didn't even bring him up. That's another good one. Speaking up with Gates of Thorbarden, you're so confused. Robin, you're not the only one. Thanks for joining live. God, I used to love the Thundercats. They were great. You know another one I used to love? Gummy Bears. You guys remember that? Bouncing here and there and everywhere. Gummy Bears is great. And then the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon was a lot of fun. I love that. That villain was always fun, like the one broken horn. And I always wanted that toy so bad. I had like I think it was the knight, not the cavalier, not the knight, like the playing characters from the cartoon, but like they met a knight at one point. And I had his toy, which was awesome as a kid. No one knew what the hell it was. They were all like into G.I. Joe. And I was like, it's Dungeons and Dragons. But what are you going to do? All right, that's enough. I'm going to go have a weekend. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into this Dragonlance reading episode. I really do appreciate you. And that's kind of it. Of course, if you do want to celebrate Dragonlance with me, subscribe, please. Yeah. And then I'm going to read what my plan is. I talked to Margaret Weis before Dragons of Deceit was released. I'm going to reach out again to Tracy Hickman after it's been released, and I'll see if I can get him to come on the show then. The fact is I've had an interaction with him, and I just don't know why he hasn't replied. So, let's start a campaign. Hashtag come on DL Saga. I don't even have social media, so I can't start it. Someone else is going to have to do it for me. I don't know. Vengar was the villain in D&D. That was his name, Vengar. He looked awesome. Like, just awesome. All right. You guys have a great day. Have a great weekend. Till next time. Salon Javon. Hashtag we need answers.